Leo, the other front man in the band, and I were the first of the band to meet. And we actually met in a recording session. As freshmen, you really don't get the good time slots. So our time slot was 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. We had a rehearsal at, I think, 10 p.m. before that 2 to 6 a.m. session. And that's the first time that I had met Leo. And we just instantly vibed, both musically and like personally, got along really well.
Chasing in the park, dancing in the dark. Maybe you were right, maybe I was hard. You just gotta see it like the old white swan. Giving me the Amazon.
What's up, everybody? It's Jack with the Pure World Podcast, and today our guest is Claire. Claire, for anybody who's watching and listening who doesn't know who you are, do you want to give them a quick rocket pitch?
Absolutely. My name is Claire Davis. I'm a bassist and songwriter, and I play in a group called the Q-Tip Bandits. We're based in Boston, and we're an indie pop, indie rock group.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Claire, tell me a little bit about your journey in music. How did it start?
Yeah, I started music when I was very young, just around 5 years old, and my parents would tell me stories of how I would run around the house playing. You ever seen like an egg cutter where you put a boiled egg in and you like slice it?
Sure.
Yeah. So I would run around the house with one of those little things and just pluck the little metal strings on it and pretend it was like a harp. And I was like, I really wanted to be like one of the little cherubs in the sky, you know, holding a little harp. And so my parents were like, let's get her harp lessons.
Really? You started with harp?
I started with harp. That was my first instrument.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, thankfully I had very supportive parents, and they wanted to get me signed up for harp lessons, and I was very excited about it. But the school that I was trying to take lessons at had an age requirement of at least 6 years old. So I had to wait a whole year to start playing an instrument.
How expensive are harps?
They can be pretty pricey. Thankfully, I was able to rent one and kind of like a rent to buy situation. So over the years, I eventually owned the harp that I had been playing for the last few years. But
looking back at it, do you still agree that the harp was the right instrument to learn first?
I wouldn't do it any other way. I think it's so fun to say that is my first instrument, because I think it's not a lot of people's first instrument. And I think it's just funny that is what I was drawn to. After the harp, I started picking up the guitar around 4th grade because I realized that the songs I was listening to, I couldn't play on the instrument that I knew how to play, which at that time was like Avril Lavigne, Green Day, you know, 4th graders, rock dream.
Oh yeah.
And right. So I begged my parents to get me into guitar lessons.
Right.
And
so like with the harp, just like, I don't want to leave the harp thing
fair.
too soon.
That's so fair.
So with the harp, true or false, all of the strings have one note.
Yes.
And they don't change. Well,
so the string itself is one pitch, but there are, depending on the kind of harp you're playing, there's levers that can change. So on the lever harp that I was playing, it's like you move the lever up and all of a sudden the pitch is a half step more sharp than it was.
And would you do that like while you're playing it, or is that kind of like, for this song, I'm going to change?
Not at the level
tuning
that I was playing at. Yeah. Definitely I was a lot more elementary in the things that I was learning, but professional harpists definitely will be, you know, changing the pitches as they go. Or there's pedal harps, which you can change with your feet instead of with your hand, which is a lot easier to do while you're playing.
A harp is very, in my opinion, and I don't know anything about harps, but harps are very similar to pianos.
Yeah, it's basically the inside of a piano turned upright.
Yeah. Right. Okay, because pianos are technically stringed instruments, or percussion.
Percussion, actually, yeah, because the little hammers.
That's a conversation I have had recently, actually, with somebody, a debate, and there is a right answer. But like harp or the piano are interesting when you compare it to a guitar, because on a guitar you are manipulating the string to change its like pitch or note, right? So
Right.
like you are like, it's only one string, and on that one string you can play multiple different
Right.
notes, whereas a harp or a piano, usually like when you're hitting that one string, it just stays the same.
Right.
So it's like interesting. I don't know, I've never like had that idea out loud, but
Yeah. Well, pitch is all about, at least when it comes to strings, pitch is all about the length of the string, and the
Right.
shorter the string, the higher the note. So effectively, when you're moving the lever on a string on the harp, you're doing the same thing as you're putting your finger down on the next fret of the guitar.
Right.
Is you're making it a half step sharper.
okay, interesting. And like, do you think that the harp, for a beginner, the harp is easier to pick up than the guitar because you don't have that like manipulation of the string? Like you just play that one string and then it's that one note, the one note that you need.
I think so.
Like, did you ever think about it that way, or?
Not really, because it was all I knew when I started. I was like, this is how you make a sound. So this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to keep making that sound. But I do think in hindsight, like when you're picking up the guitar, you have to like shape your hand into different forms to get it to do things and like play chords. Whereas as the harp, it's like, you know, you pluck the string and you're going to get a sound, you know.
Right.
I think it was definitely easy to pick up as not easy, but like as far as a new instrument goes, I think it's a good one to pick up.
I was like almost like in my head, I'm just like almost comparing it to like drums or like a cymbal. A cymbal, you like hit it, and you can hit it 100 different ways to make 100 different sounds, and you're hitting that cymbal.
Right.
But it's different than a hi-hat.
Right.
In which case you are manipulating by like you're opening or closing it. And so you're like exponentially changing the amount of sounds that you can create with the hi-hat compared to just a regular cymbal, because now you can like, there's another layer of manipulation. And I think for like a harp or a piano where you're not necessarily changing it, and I know that there are pedals on like a piano that you can like have some extra manipulation there. With a guitar, like you're like manually manipulating the strings.
Right.
Let's move forward off of that wild
Instruments are wild.
random tangent and talk about like where that brought you as you started to mature. Like say like high school. You had been kind of studying music for a couple years, and what was it like in high school, like or even late middle school? Like where did that music interest mature?
Yeah, I would say my passion for music was in full bloom once I was around 12 years old. That was when I was just starting to pick up the bass guitar, which is my primary instrument. And I, before that, had been told to pick up an instrument for like, you know, school band orchestra, and I chose the upright bass. And when I found out that you can you can combine upright bass with guitar and you get a bass guitar, I was hooked. I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And that's when I really started to like play in bands for the first time, was like around 12 years old. And I joined a program called School of Rock back in Michigan, where I grew up. And it was like you take all of the music kids, all of the band kids who are just like crazy about music from you know, a bunch of different middle schools and high schools around the area, and you put them in one place for like an after school program. And that's what that was. And that was the best thing ever for me. I was so excited every week to go to School of Rock and have band practice there. And that was really when I was like, wow, this music thing and playing in bands and writing songs, like this is really cool. Like this is what I want to do. So I continued to form bands with my friends and play local shows around. I think played my first show when I was like 12 or 13, and then continued all throughout high school until still doing it.
Yeah. So how about in high school? Like there's always that cliche idea of like, oh, like maybe like a either like a band that plays at prom or like a house party and there's like a band or something. It's like something like vintage that you like would imagine that they were doing back in like the 80s or something.
I wish we had bands play at prom.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
I didn't have one either.
No,
but what was it like being in a band in high school? And were you playing with people in your high school?
I was playing with some people that were in my high school, but mostly people that I'd met through that School of Rock program, which meant that they went to surrounding high schools. You know, it might be like a 20-minute drive away, but not the high school I was attending. And so we would meet up, you know, like once a week or however much we could manage with school schedules, and we'd get together in someone's basement or, you know, someone's whatever space was available to us. And yeah, we'd have our rehearsals, our band practices.
Were you guys good?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think as far as like local band fame is, like some of the bands I was in got a good amount of like local recognition, which, you know, at that time we were like, we're on top of the world, like we're unstoppable. And that felt really awesome. But, you know, as far as like listening back to our old like recordings and stuff, I'm like, no, we're still high schoolers making music. Like,
yeah. It's funny. I was in a band in middle school and in high school too.
Yeah.
We played our 8th grade like prom, our 8th grade social. And then also we played like a couple of shows in high school, but we were we were not the School of Rock kids. We were not the kids who like who were like all like super passionate about music and like found each other. It was like me, my next door neighbor, my friend who like I was really good friends with, but like could sing pretty well.
yeah.
And then like my next door neighbor's friend who could play a little bit of drums, but like my neighbor didn't play guitar. So like I was teaching him how to play bass guitar.
Which is the classic story.
The classic story, but it's like we were so ragtag, but like to be playing with people who actually like were musicians and like were like had at least like taken music lessons and like stuff. I think that that's really, really valuable.
I think
like
so too.
not a lot, like there are a lot of people out there who want to become musicians, but don't have the opportunity to be in like a band that sounds good because it's hard to find bandmates.
Right.
And I think that's a struggle that a lot of musicians have, is that they like can't find the band.
Definitely.
And that brings me to the question that I have for you, which is like, how did you find your band and like, how did you guys come together?
Yeah. So I went to Berklee College of Music, which is here in Boston, and as did everyone else in the band. So that is where we all met and talk about like, you know, the place where music kids go. Like Berklee is absolutely that. Take every passionate music kid from their high schools and put them in one place. So it's like the School of Rock that I was going to, but like on steroids, like music all the time, everywhere. Everyone's so passionate. It really was wonderful to be around. But yeah, so we all came from different states and ended up in Boston together. And Leo, the other front man in the band, and I were the first of the band to meet, and we actually met in a recording session. We had a mutual friend who needed some live instruments for a song that he was working on. And Berklee has recording studios that you can like rent out and sign up for a time slot. And as freshmen, you really don't get the good time slots. So our time slot was 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And we had a rehearsal at, I think, 10 p.m. Before that 2 to 6 a.m. session. And that's the first time that I had met Leo. And we just instantly vibed and both musically and like personally got along really well. I think I remember like I'm a very like dancey person. And so we were like in the rehearsal playing the song and I was just dancing around and he was giving that energy right back to me. And so it was very like evident that we clicked. And a few weeks later, he was like, hey, I'm starting a band. I'm trying to get some people to play these songs that I've written, and I don't have a bass player. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I like this person and I like the music that he makes. And that was kind of the start of the Q-Tip Bandits. And then we met more bandmates as we went along. And our trumpet player like was best friends with someone who lived in the dorm above me, you know, and just running into people from various spots of college. But yeah, we all met there.
That sounds so cool. It sounds so like, in a way, it's super organic. The way that, you know, like it was a neighbor of my friend and stuff like that. But also, again, the luxury that like the community that you were in was already talented and passionate about music.
Yeah.
So like just the opportunities are you know, exponentially greater.
Community makes all the difference.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like a dream, honestly, for somebody who's like interested in music and wants to pursue a music career.
Yeah.
Like being like when you said like the recording studio time slot was 2 a.m., 6 a.m., I was like, that's when magic is made.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
That is a good night for me. That sounds epic. So like, let's talk a little bit more about this culture of Berklee. Cause like, I'm super fascinated. How about like like who goes to Berklee and why do they go to Berklee?
There's a lot of different people and a lot of different reasons, I think. But I feel like the different categories, I guess, that I would put people in, just very blanket statements, is like people who are either very passionate about their instrument, right? And they know they want to be a performer, you know, whether that's like a jazz musician or like a classical player. But also the cool thing about Berklee is that it is a very contemporary school. And with a lot of other music schools, you have to choose, do you want to do classical? Do you want to do jazz? And Berklee is, to my knowledge, one of the only places where it's like, oh, I want to do pop. Like I want to work in the current music industry and in popular music. And I think that's why a lot of people choose to go there. A lot of people trying to either to be the next, you know, star, or to work with people in the popular music business in whatever degree, whether it be for writing or for recording or production, etc. But yeah.
Cool.
Along with a lot of other major
Yeah,
things
of course. Yeah. With the people who, so like I went to an entrepreneurship school, Babson College, and it's like there's a huge group of people who want to be the CEO of a company, the head honcho of the company. Yeah. And I think it's similar to a music school where it's like a lot of people want to be the star. And so what was it like with like that amount of energy where like there's a lot of like star power, there's a lot of like and like I'm sure that like could stir up drama potentially, like with competition at least. Did you feel like there was any competition, or like do you want to join my band? Oh, but it's gonna be my band, and you're you know, or do you want to record on my album?
Sure.
Was that ever like a sensation?
I would say the competition and the competitive aspect is all internal and was never really, like, I don't think the drama was outside, but it was like, you know, a lot of internal struggle of like, wow, I'm watching people who are so talented and so phenomenal at what they're doing every single day in my classes or in performances around, and to keep your self-confidence and to remind yourself of like, there is a reason that I'm here. And, you know, I'm comparing the internal, you know, like the bad parts of myself to the external, the good parts of what I'm seeing in other people, was a tough thing to like struggle with, and to remind yourself of like, there's a reason I'm here. I'm good at something. And I just got to continue to work on it and try and use what's going on around me as inspiration rather than competition.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Honestly, that's a really good perspective on it. Because like people naturally compare themselves to other people, but it's like the right advice would be the only person you should compare yourself to is you from yesterday.
Right. We hear it all the time.
Right?
It's
Like
so classic, but it's a reason why it's classic and
Right.
cliche. It's true.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. Really exciting. What would you guys do on the weekends for fun?
Jam, play more music.
Yeah. No, totally. I can imagine it.
Definitely in my first year, I was a lot more explorative, and I, was fascinated by Boston and my first time, living on my own. And so I was out, trying to explore every corner of Boston as much as I could on weekends. And I think I could have practiced a little more than I did, but I definitely prioritized being social and meeting people, which ultimately is like what it comes down. Like a music degree doesn't give you anything, but the people choosing to be there getting a music degree, like that is the real, the gold of going to a place like Berkeley. And so, yeah, I would spend my weekends going out, exploring, and then also, jamming, meeting new people in recording sessions and stuff, and really just like saying yes to as many things as I could when I was there. Which, over time, started to become more focused and more, like gigging and stuff like that, and less exploring Boston. But I always tried to do as much as I could, whether that was music involved or just fun. You
mentioned that you could have done more practicing. I had like homework, and like I could have done more homework.
Yeah.
Did you feel like did you have homework, or would you consider like your homework to be practicing? Like, I just, from a music school standpoint, I don't know what like the workload consists of.
There definitely was a lot of homework. And I think something that, I don't know if it is common knowledge, but like a lot of colleges, normal colleges you have like 4 to 5 classes per semester, right? And at music school, you have 10 to 12 classes per semester.
So different.
Yeah. And so I think that the homework assignments may be a little less intense than at a normal school, but you have a lot of them. Like your brain is being directed in 10 different classes, 10 different directions, and you have to find a way to balance all of that. So, and I've always been a very academic person. And, I think a lot of people go to Berkeley or go to music school in general because they like don't really know what else they're going to do. And it was a very conscious decision for me because I loved school. I love academics. And so I think I brought that same energy to Berkeley and tried to do as much like homework as I could. Mm-hmm. But also there's a certain extent where it is like, okay, this is music school. This is like, the homework is not the most important part of this experience.
And was the homework, would the homework consist of you like touching your instrument?
Sometimes. So you would have like a private instruction and like an ensemble class that would require you to practice. But then other classes were like music theory or like production classes, business classes, or like just liberal arts classes where it's like you didn't need your instrument and it was just pen to paper classic stuff. Yeah.
Do you personally write songs?
I do. Yeah. I'm one of the primary songwriters in the band that I am in, the Cute Bandits. And
we'll get there. Well, because I was going to ask, like, I'm interested in the Q-Tip Bandits songwriting.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, like, if you play a role in it and just like how that happens. Is there a strategy? Is there like, do you have a method? Is there, what do you do? And how does it happen?
Yeah. I am relatively new to songwriting, as in like, I think I started really seriously writing songs when I got to college. Before that, I would try and write a song and I would get like a verse and a chorus into it. And then I'd be like, I can't write a second verse. So I'm just going to leave it be. And so I had like, folders and folders of voice memos of half finished songs that I didn't know where to go from there. And it wasn't until I really got to college that I learned how to like write a finished song and complete a song. And ever since that point forward, I have just fallen in love with the art of songwriting and storytelling through song. I think it's such a beautiful medium. But the process for me will really start with usually a melody or some lyrics, like an idea for a story that I want to tell. And then I'll sit down with my instrument, with a guitar or with a bass, and really try and flesh it out. And sometimes it will happen in like, a few hours. And then sometimes I'll get in the same, like, I'll write a verse or a chorus and then I just can't get further. So I'll let it sit for a little bit, let it breathe, and then pick it back up a few weeks later, a few days later, when I feel like things are coming to me more. Yeah.
Do you ever like just like open up your voice memos and like hum something into it, or like, and like maybe in your notes, just like write down a phrase and then come back to it later to like expand upon? Yeah,
that's actually, you're describing my process right now.
Okay.
Especially recently that's kind of, what I've been doing, and something I'm getting a little bit better at is actually naming those voice memos, because right now it's just like the location, like 10 times. Right, and I'm like, what was this? What was this? And then I have to actually go back and listen to them. But you're not always going to have time to sit down and write a full song, but you should never not have time to just jot down an idea real quick, because you never know what that idea could turn into.
That concept right there is so applicable to every single person, no matter what they are doing. Our brains just like think of random ideas. And to me, I think like the most important part of those ideas is establishing a net to catch them.
That's a great way to put it.
Because we all have ideas that are random. Whatever you do, like you're making breakfast, you're at the gym, like a random idea pops in your head, and you're like, I should move my bed over to the other side so I get more sun, or something like random, like an idea. But like, if you don't catch that some way, and for me, it's like I have a notebook, I write all my ideas down in the notebook, or like a voice memo if it's a song, something like that. If you don't have that net, then like you risk forgetting it. And like, even if you've got a great memory, you're probably going to forget 25% of them, or some amount that like that amount is super valuable. And so I think just like for any creatives, to like practice this idea of like acknowledging that you have a good idea or an important idea, a valuable idea.
Just an idea.
Just an idea. You can determine if it's important and valuable later.
Yeah.
But like capturing it so that like you can make that decision and maybe expand upon it later, I think is really important. And I think that is something that people could use and improve their lives with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, like regardless of what field you're in or of what you're trying to do, ideas are ideas, and write them down while you have them.
Yeah. Because our brains, we forget a lot of times. So you come up with a random idea in a random time and place, you write it down or you voice memo it. What are the next steps? What do you do to prepare yourself to like try to expand an idea? Like, how do you get in that state of mind that you're going to pick up the guitar or, something like that? Like, do you set a time every single day? Do you drink tea while you're doing it? What do you do?
It really depends, and it's something that I'm still working on. I think, the most successful writers carve out a time in their every day or every week to sit down with their instrument and just see what comes out. Leo, the other front man in our band, has this thing where he says that all it takes is like 5 minutes a day. Like, you just tell yourself, I'm going to just do something with my instrument for 5 minutes every day, or just 5 minutes today. No, it doesn't have to be every day. And it'll always turn out to be more than 5 minutes. And you might end up with a song, or you might just, end up with like 15 minutes of practice, like whatever it is. But I think for me, what helps me to bring a song to completion is like thinking through of like, okay, well, here is this the initial idea that I wrote down, like say it was like one line of lyrics, and I'm like, okay, like where could this go? And I kind of think of like the different branches of like, okay, if this is what the first verse is about, like what could the second verse be about, or what could, the chorus be about, kind of thing. And then I try and find like a thread of like what makes the most sense. And that has been the thing that's been most useful for me to actually finishing a song, is knowing what the end is going to be before I sit down and try to write the middle, or, even the beginning. Yeah. Just knowing where the story is going to go before you get to the second verse and you're completely lost.
Yeah, totally. I was listening to the song Happy.
Oh, yeah.
You know that one? Well,
I didn't know that one.
Bandits song. Can you tell me a little bit about like that, and like I don't know, just coming to mind, like hearing it, I think it told like a very clear story to me, especially with like there was a twist at the end, kind of. Did you, maybe, I don't know. I didn't write the song, so I don't know what it's about, but like what were you thinking when you were writing that song, or were you the main songwriter for that song?
I did write that one. And that song is very special to me. So it's funny or cool that you bring it up, I guess. Because that was actually the first song that I ever sat down and wrote and finished in one sitting. And that had never happened for me before. So there was something very special to me about that song. And I feel like, whatever the source of inspiration is, everyone's got a different theory about that. But I think whatever it is, I was really able to tap into it that day. And it was very much a song that came out of a lot of turbulent feelings of, it was the first time home after a first semester of college. So first semester of
this was a while ago.
Yeah, this was around 5 years ago now. And I think everyone who moves away from their hometown and then comes back after their first semester of college has a lot of these feelings of, and just being alone, even if you don't like leave your hometown, but just like experiencing college and what it's like to be an adult and living on your own comes with a lot of feelings and a lot of growth. And for me, coming home after that time and realizing that I had drifted apart from people, and the relationships that I had were not the same as they were when I left that summer. And one relationship in particular, I think I really started to drift from. And sometimes, there's not necessarily one reason why you drift from someone, and that can be even more painful than when there is a reason that you drift from someone. And that is kind of the feelings that went into Happy when I was writing it.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that was like a song that you were able to write in one sitting, because like listening to it, I almost feel like it sounds like it came easy to write, like there was a like, not that I could tell, but like when you say that you wrote that in one sitting, I'm like, that makes sense. It seems like something that just like almost like a waterfall effect. Like once you let the first like drips of water in, it all comes in, and like it's great that you were able to capture all of that and then like actually create something and like convey those emotions in a way for everybody to hear and learn from. Which is really cool.
Thanks.
And that's something that as an artist, like that's the superpower of artists, is that they're able to communicate in a way to the world. Because a lot of people I think struggle to communicate, but like having an outlet like music or painting or something like that is is that's a channel to communicate from.
Absolutely.
So I think for everybody, like, even though you didn't go to Berkeley or you didn't go to, Juilliard, or, you don't classically paint or anything, doesn't mean you shouldn't pick up the paintbrush and like,
Yes,
just like do it, because I think that's healthy to collect your emotions in
100%.
in a coherent way.
Yeah.
Cool. What about writing song? Like, have you ever written a song where you just made it up completely? Like, it was like completely fake.
As far as the story goes?
Like the story, you were like, imagine if I was in a hotel in Paris, how I would feel. Like,
Yeah.
And then just like totally extrapolate from a completely fantastic, as in like fantasy way. Have you ever tried doing something like that?
I think I've tried as an exercise, right?
Yeah.
To try and put myself in someone else's shoes, and try and imagine like, well, okay, well, if I were this person, how would I be writing this story? What would the perspective on this look like? Not through my eyes, but I've noticed every time I try and sit down and do that, a little bit of myself ends up creeping back into the song, and sometimes I don't even realize that that's how I feel about something until I like sit down and I'm like, oh, like, although this is from someone else's perspective, like this is also how I feel, so I think it's a skill to be able to jump into someone else's shoes and just write like that from a completely fake point of view. But I do think that a little bit of truth will always kind of creep its way back in there.
Totally. I have a gift for you.
You have a gift for me?
Yeah. This is for you.
This is so cool.
Yeah, this is a little high tide mini backpack. It matches your couch.
It does. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
thank
a little
you.
gift for anybody who's listening. It's a high tide mini backpack. You should check it out on the Pure World website, and you'll see what it looks like. So you just came back from tour.
We did. Yeah.
And what was that like? How long were you guys gone?
That was a 4-week tour. Yeah.
And you've toured before.
Yes. So we have been on, this past one was a 4-week one, kind of from Boston to Austin, Texas, and surrounding states. And we've been on tour, like larger tours twice before that.
Really cool. And how did you land the different gigs?
So for a long time, Leo and I were doing the booking, but as of recently, we have a manager and a booking agent who thankfully have taken that part of the job off of our shoulders and who are booking our gigs for us now. And so they are finding the venues, finding the people we play with, and making the shows happen.
Awesome. And what is it like? Like, what does the prep look like for getting on stage in front of somebody? Like, I feel like it can be like there could be a lot of emotions going on, maybe anxiety. Like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah. I think the best cure for stage fright and anxiety is practice.
Yeah, facts. That's like what your teacher would say.
Well, from experience, it's like I'm only nervous on stage if I'm not confident in what we're gonna do, which I still notice that when I am nervous, it's when we're playing a new song, when we're playing something that we haven't really tested in front of an audience a lot of times before that. But if it's like when we're on tour, we'll play either the same set or a very similar set night after night for different cities. And when we get on a roll with something like that, it becomes so much easier. And to know that you're on stage with people that you love, and you're going to be playing the songs that you've played so many times that, like, you could close your eyes and you could play them, or like, it doesn't matter what goes wrong during the set. You know the songs and the material well enough to kind of like get back on it. That really is the best way to get over that, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. Over what time period were you traveling, and how many shows did you have? So how much time in between each show was there?
So this last tour was actually a more spacious one than we have in the past. Usually we try and do 3 to 4 nights in a row and then take 1 to 2 days off. And in this past tour, we thankfully got to have a little bit of off time in Austin, Texas, and also in New Orleans. So we got to like spread out a little bit, have some vacation fun time. But as for a typical tour, it's usually like 4 nights on and then 1 to 2 nights off.
Mm-hmm. And were you guys road tripping it? Were you in a bus? Like what
We've got a van, and
Okay.
we've got a trailer attached to that van.
Yeah.
And so we travel all together in that.
And who is the crew who is the crew?
The crew. It's the 5 of us in the band, and our manager Zoe travels with us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And everybody's in that one car?
Yep.
That sounds like a lot of fun. It's like a van where everybody's in the same like
Yeah, it's like a
room,
7-seat
Yeah.
van.
Okay. Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds sick. Do you guys own it or do you rent it?
We own it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are like a full-on business. In terms of like the finances, does the band have its own like bank account?
Yes, we do have. We have what we call the band fund, which a portion of all of our shows and our merch and anything that the band members also make money off of, the band takes a certain cut, which is how we fund things like gas for tour or like, buying new merch, and all of that. I'd say for people trying to start bands, that is so important to have, because no one's gonna want to pay out of pocket to make these things happen, especially when it's like larger expenses, like, we need to buy $2,000 of t-shirts,
Right.
so to have a system set up where you can fund yourselves, which may mean sacrificing, some amount of payment per individuals for, a little bit of time, but it really is so worth it to have that set aside.
And how can everybody who's watching or listening support you guys? You and the whole band. Where can they find you and how can they support you?
Yeah, we are on Instagram at the Q-Tip Bandits, and we are also on Spotify, Apple Music, all the places where you can stream music. That's where we'll be, as well as Facebook, TikTok, those places. And yeah, the best ways to support small bands like ours are adding songs to your playlists. As simple as that is, it helps the algorithm and gets our music out to more people. And then also come to a live show. We tour around, and getting to a live show, bringing fans, bringing friends, and buying some merch if you want. Those are the best ways to support.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody who's watching, this is the Pure World Podcast. You can support the podcast by shopping for your sustainably sourced adventure gear at pureworldshop.com. We've got everything you need: backpacks, handbags, purses, wallets, sweatshirts, whatever you want. We can get you something sustainably handmade, and it's great for people and the planet. So if you like the podcast, support us. And thank you, Claire.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. See ya.